This is Locker Room Rewind, brought to you by Chunky Gnomes Insurance. Here's Ryan Reynolds and Jaydon Hart.
Hello everyone and happy Halloween. This is Locker Room Rewind, powered by Chunky Gnomes Insurance. Save up to 50% on your homeowners, auto, or life insurance. Shop your rate with over 25 carriers. Call 325-223-0314 to speak with a live agent or visit www.chunkygnomes.com. Again, that number 325-223-0314. Chunky Gnomes Insurance. Get protected today. I'm Ryan Reynolds. The man next to me is the football wizard, Jaydon Hart. We're here to recap Week 10 of the high school football season in the Concho Valley. Week 6 for the Central Bobcats. Playoff spots were claimed. Teams within grabbing distance of district championships. Some teams still hanging on to hope. Jaydon, this is just what makes the sport so great.
Yeah, exactly. And I like to use the term moving week. That's kind of how it was. And as you're seeing the Central Bobcats highlights show up on the screen, not necessarily moving week for them, but for the small schools it was. Yeah,
and I guess starting with Central in District 2-6A, they beat Odessa High 38-7. Bobcats are back at 500 at 3-3 overall, but most importantly, they remain unbeaten in district at 3-0. It was their homecoming game. Just fitting that the homecoming king, Malachi Brown, had one heck of a game. It was the second time in the last 3 games he finished with 5 touchdown passes, which is the school record. He tied the school record twice already this season. 21-37, 295 yards. Get this. He threw touchdown passes to 4 different receivers in the first half alone. Weston Hill, Seth Levesque, Jalen Lifesti, and Trip Noble all caught touchdown passes. Central's defense also having a pretty solid game after allowing an opening touchdown. They allowed Odessa to just 44 total yards in the first half. And then I guess adding to that, second straight weeks, the Bobcats have allowed only 7 points, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean, Odessa High, and it's just one of those things where, they're just not – this isn't a great Odessa High team. So, you see them – that's opening possession, them scoring, and then the fact that, like you said, they were able to keep them off the scoreboard and get things adjusted. I'm sure right out of the gate they weren't too thrilled with that, but it's nice to see that they adjusted and eventually did what they were supposed to do, and that was to handedly beat this football team. And I feel like, you've got Midland High coming up, and that should probably be the same case. And then you get the fun ones.
Yes, I mean, great game for Central. I mean, as you mentioned, kind of expected score for Central as they move to 3-0. The only undefeated team in the little Southwest Conference. Exactly. Permian, they beat Friendship last night. They overcame actually a halftime deficit in that one, beating Friendship 36-27, and then Midland Lee stomps Abilene 51-19. Central on the road at Midland High, who's 1-1 in district this year, before that big showdown on November 20th at home against Permian. How lucky are we that thing is at San Angelo Stadium?
I'm extremely happy that thing is at San Angelo Stadium, and we'll see what teams are small school wise are still in the playoffs. But it could be one of the few football games going on for us that week if that and with stadium issues and everything. But I'm not trying to get too ahead of that one because that's going to be a great game. But Midland Lee is looking like the team to challenge Central, and I mean the brood of Abilene High schedule is over, so they're probably going to win out, or I would think that they're going to win out. We'll see what happens, but I think that Midland Lee and that Permian stretch is going to be pretty difficult.
All signs pointing north through the first 3 weeks of district play for Central. We'll see how they handle Midland High next week. Jaydon, how about those Ballinger Bearcats in District 2-3A Division 2? They grinded out a great win over Bangs 25-13 at Bearcat Stadium. Ballinger handing Bangs their first loss of the season. They also clinched at least a share of the district title with the win. Let's make sure we get that right. They can go ahead and win it outright next week with a win over Sonora.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, this game, I've seen district championship, whatever you want to say with it. I mean, yeah, it was more than likely to crown a district champion, but like you just said, they still have to beat Sonora. there's the whole, you can have a co-champ scenario involved in there, and there's multiple scenarios that could happen. Sonora still technically could be a co-champion. There could still be a three-way tie if Bangs were to beat Brady and then Sonora wins, because then you have Bangs who beat Sonora. But I mean, what's more than likely going to happen is Ballinger beats Sonora next week and is the one coming out of 2-3A.
And the story of this game really was just how Ballinger played in the second half. They had the ball for all but 1 minute and 39 seconds in the third quarter. You can't score if you don't have the ball.
And that's what they do. They are a really old-fashioned football team. I heard that last night, and I felt like that's kind of the best way to describe it, because I kept saying, well, they like to run the ball and they really rely on their defense. But, in reality, that's what it is. It's just old-fashioned, the smash mouth football where we're going to just grind you down with our running game, and then our defense isn't going to let you score. And we saw that in the second half. And really, like, aside from the big touchdown that Bangs had for their first score, they were on the 4-yard line of their own 4. So then, it was a 96-yard touchdown that I think Ethan Sanchez busted outside. And, that was just huge. Like, you kind of thought, okay, maybe the Ballinger defense is a little bit vulnerable, because I haven't seen them give up a big play like that. But, I mean, the second quarter was kind of the same as far as keeping Bangs in check. And Bangs drove down there late in the second quarter and scored right before the half. But, I mean, the second half, they shut them out. Just kept them out of the end zone. And that's what Ballinger's going to have to do in the playoffs, because they're going to play some really good teams. Not maybe right away. Their first matchup's going to be pretty easy, I have a feeling, but it gets tough after that.
And Garrett Dixon, the running back for Ballinger, a huge part in the Bearcats, just chewing the clock away. 81 yards and 2 touchdowns in the second half. On defense for Ballinger, also a great game in the second half. I know they forced Bangs to 2 3-and-outs on their first 2 drives to start, and that's deflating.
Yeah.
For Bangs if you're the Dragons. And then Ballinger also forced a 3-and-out early in the fourth quarter to get the ball back. So taking a look at the District 2-3A Division II standings, we have Ballinger alone at the top at 4-0. Bangs in second at 3-1. Sonora beat Grape Creek 44-14 to kind of stay in that co-champion scenario race next week against Ballinger. Brady, they punched their ticket to the playoffs, beating Ingram Moore 53-34. Brady claiming the final playoff spot in that district.
Yeah, they're the 4 no matter what happens. If Sonora loses, they still have the tiebreaker over Brady. So it doesn't matter if Brady wins or loses next week.
And then Ingram Moore and Grape Creek round out the district at 0-4. The Mason Punchers, they picked up a huge win in Ozona out in District 14 to a Division I. Them beating the Lions 27-18, if that's even proper English, Jaydon. But that means the win, though, means that the Punchers clinch at least a share of the district title. It was a battle, too.
Yeah, for a little while I thought Ozona was going to win, and you could even make the argument that Ozona might have won this football game, because they had an opportunity there late. And, the score is 27-18, and it's 9 points. But reality, it was more of a 2-point game, and you had a swing there at the end.
Yeah, but mistakes hurting the Lions. They failed a 2-point conversion run with 4:47 left to play. That would have tied the game up. And then before that, Ozona had the ball on Mason's 15-yard line. A snap going over Jesse Vega's head. That pushed him back to the 40-yard line, resulted in 0 points for Ozona. So definitely a possibility for Ozona to pull that one out. Kind of shot themselves in the foot, but not to take any credit away from Mason. They pick up the win at 27-18 to clinch at least a share of District 14 to a Division I, that title out there. Mason, 335 total yards of offense. The Punchers, they allowed 12 points in the first half, allowed only 6 in the second half.
And you can really still make the argument that Ozona could be better than Mason. I know that doesn't make sense considering that Mason just won. But I felt like these teams were really evenly matched.
I would like to see them play again.
Yeah, that's what I guess I'm trying to get at, is that it's still an evenly matched deal. And you know, I hate to be negative, but Ozona is probably going to beat Johnson City next week, which means they'll be the second place. They could be co-champs if Mason loses to Bracketville, but that's, again, more than likely not going to happen. Once you get into the playoffs, you've got Refugio and Shiner looming. Ozona will get Refugio, and then in most cases, since Mason won, they bought themselves an extra week and would get Shiner in the regional round. So, yeah, regardless, though, I mean, it was an exciting football game, and that's what you really want to see. And props to Coach McLeod for turning this thing around in Mason this year, and starting out with those 4 losses, and then just, you know, they've kind of been on a tear. That district might not be the greatest out there, but, you know, wins are wins, and in this sport, you know, maybe they catch some momentum going into the playoffs, and something changes.
5 straight wins for Mason. They also snapped Ozona's 5-game winning streak. So, I mean, these two teams definitely playoff teams. They have a tough road ahead when they do start playoff action. As you mentioned, Johnson City, they beat Harper 45-8. Bracketville beat Centerpoint 36-8. Mason will go for the outright title with the win over Bracketville next Friday. Ozona, they will try and beat Johnson City and then sit in the locker room and cross their fingers and hope that Bracketville pulls out a win over Mason.
Yeah, so if Ozona does lose to Johnson City, though, they will be the 3 seed. Johnson City would then be the 2, just to clarify that.
Yes. Moving along, Christoval in District 14 2A, Division 2. They ran through Junction 55-6, officially locking up a share of the district title. The 8th straight win for Christoval after dropping that season opener against Wink. Last 3 years for Christoval, just great numbers, 26-7 with 2 playoff wins.
Christoval's the real deal this year, and I feel like, I mean, it's pretty much decided at this point, but it really does look like, you know, Christoval is just such a higher tier above everyone else in that district. I mean, even El Dorado, who you could say is probably the 2nd team, and that gap is just so big, which is promising, because we've said it before, their region is really not that loaded. And one thing that Coach John Long in El Dorado he'd said was that the defense was something that, you know, he was really impressed with, and I'm starting to, you know, you want to talk about Braden Wilcox and just the athleticism and just the amazing show that he can put on for you, but I think the defense really it's really good, and that is going to come crucial in the playoffs. And there's an opportunity there. I mean, you can go way down, but since Christoval's clinched the 1 seed, that's going to end up playing into their favor really well, because Fall City is the team that also is in that region that you're kind of having to look out for, and that matchup wouldn't happen until the regional finals. So, you know, it's an opportunity for Christoval to make it really far, and that district title talk, you know, getting the share of the district title is awesome. The Cougars have never won an outright title since being a 11-man football team. That dates back to 1994. It's when they made the transition to 6-man to 11-man. So, you know, history could be made next week, and that's pretty exciting for this program.
It's going to be a huge deal. Christoval taking on Miles next week. Bo Jolly was the bright spot. You mentioned that Christoval defense. He had 2 interceptions, which both led to touchdowns, turning defense into offense. Christoval, they led 28-0 at the half and just kind of ran away with this thing. El Dorado, you mentioned El Dorado. They beat Menard 68-7. They can officially lock up that 2 seed with a win over Junction next week. And then you mentioned Miles, and unfortunately their playoff hopes have come to an end. They lose to Rock Springs 62-18.
And it's kind of seeming like Rock Springs is going to end up getting the 3. Like El Dorado Junction, that's a big matchup. You know, there's a 3-way tie for second if Junction wins and Rock Springs wins next week. So, and Rock Springs will more than likely win since they're playing Menard. But you could have a 3-way tie scenario, then it goes to the point system and so forth. But yeah, Rock Springs has been they've proven people wrong this year. I'd say
props to the Angoras.
Yeah, I'd say as far as the teams that we cover in our area, and Rock Springs kind of is outside of it, but we still talk about them a little bit with them being in that district. They've been one of the more surprising ones.
We'll see what happens in District 14 2A Division II next week. I'm sure we'll talk about some on the preview cast on Wednesday's episode. How about the Wall Hawks? They returned to action. They finally returned to action yesterday. They bounced back from that loss over Jim Ned. They beat Clyde last night on the road 36-13. The Hawks, there's still hope for them. They can still claim a share of that district title with a Jim Ned loss to Clyde next week. Hey, that was Clyde's first district loss too.
Yeah, and it would be a three-way tie if that scenario plays out that you're talking about, where Clyde beats Jim Ned. It wouldn't be a co-champ type deal like we've said with other districts. And then what becomes probably it matters is the seeding. And Clyde has a forfeit win against TLCA, while Wall has that forfeit win against Breckenridge. I think that Wall would get it due to just the number of points that they've scored in their other contests, the margin of victory. So they're probably going to end up being the two, and that would mean they would more than likely, as of right now, be playing Boyd in the first round rematch from last year's first round matchup.
And Gabe Haskins, big props to him for Wall. He started at QB last night, helped the Hawks to 491 rushing yards, which is huge. Just to break that down, Chase Rios had a game-high 186 yards on 15 carries, 2 scores. Dominic Garcia, 12 carries for 135 and a touchdown. And Kai Herbert, 10 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. It's something when you can have 3 players finish with over 100 rushing yards.
And, you know, I talk about tiers and districts. I feel like it really is. I don't want to just say that Jim Ned is up and above everyone else. Now, clearly, based on how they beat Wall, it looks that way. But, you know, I feel like Wall and Jim Ned are the above clear-cut 2 teams. And so while it would be awesome if Clyde beat Jim Ned to force that whole district 3-way tie so that Wall can get a 10th straight district championship, more than likely that is not going to happen, and Jim Ned will be taking the one. But really quick, you know, mentioning that stat line for the running backs, the offensive line coming into this season was so, I wouldn't say highly anticipated is the word, but there were a lot of expectations for them just because of returning guys. You have one of the best offensive linemen in the state of Texas with Tate Williams. And you know, the offense, I'm not saying that it hasn't done well, but it seems that there's been moments where it hasn't necessarily played up to its full potential. And that, as someone that is a Wall Hawk fan out there listening, probably has to be encouraging in some ways, because you know you've got some time still to get this sorted out. You've got early next week. Will be more than likely Boyd in the bi-district round. If you win that game, you're more than likely playing Bushland in the area round, and then the game that I would think would be the big one for Wall, as far as you know, your first. Not that Bushland won't be a challenge, or Boyd that they won't be a challenge. But you have Shallow Water in the next round. You get past Shallow Water, then, hey, maybe you get a shot at Brock. There's a lot of what-ifs in there. But, you know, this thing, maybe that loss to Jim Ned is what Wall needed, because while losing to Midland Christian's not great and losing to Cornerstone Christian isn't fun either, you know, it's one of those deals where it's not a district loss. Their streak, they had a 52-game winning streak in district. That's like dating back to 2010.
Insane.
It's crazy. So, you know, maybe that just kind of sat into their heads, and, you know, they got an impressive win over Clyde. Let's just, you know, sum it up. I know we're trying to move it fast this week. It was an impressive win.
Light a fire under Wall. I know we're crossing our fingers that Clyde somehow pulls it out against Jim Ned. We want chaos.
Yeah, chaos is good.
Well,
chaos is good for our teams right now.
So Jim Ned, you mentioned them. They remain perfect in District 3A Division I. They beat Breckenridge 18-0. Early beat TLCA 52-6, which ultimately eliminates TLCA from the playoffs.
And Breckenridge.
And
Breck's
Breckenridge.
Breck's
So
done.
there we go. How about Lakeview? They lost to Big Spring 35-21 in District 2-4A Division 1. That means Lakeview is the 4th seed. Big Springs is the 3rd seed. Fort Stockton.
That was so crazy.
47-35.
I couldn't believe that when I checked
insane.
the score last night. I was expecting, and I have to produce the show and get everything as far as standings and things in. And I had Andrews as finishing 3-0. You do it so that you can just go through and it makes things a lot quicker. I expected Andrews to win, and Fort Stockton, they come in like 1-5 into district play, and it just goes to show you that these non-district games, while they matter as far as getting your team prepared for district, in reality really don't matter, because now Fort Stockton comes in and they're the 1, and we'll get I'm not 100% sure how that district eventually played out. I know Clint is the 1, and that will be who Lakeview plays in the by-district round in 2 weeks. Riverside is the 2. And then as far as the 3 and 4, I'm not 100% sure. So, yeah, good on Fort Stockton. I mean, I guess if you're looking at it by just like how all 3 played Lakeview, Fort Stockton really beat Lakeview the worst or the best. If that, that's kind of one of those weird one. And then Andrews and then Big Spring, they played them a little closer. So, wow, interesting way that one finished.
Lakeview will have this next week off before starting the playoffs. Busy week for District 8-1A Division 1. Very busy week.
Very busy week.
So Bront and Highland played on Monday to allow Highland to play Sterling City today, which is why we're on in prime time hours.
And having to rush.
And having to rush out of the mall area because we only have 40-something minutes. But here is why, and you can blame District 8-1A Division 1. So Highland, they beat Bront 58-6 on Monday. Friday's action, number 3 Westbrook beats Robert Lee 45-0 via mercy rule. And then the game today, number 1 Sterling City beating Highland 68-22 in what a game that was. Steamy day out in Sterling City.
At least warmer than I would have liked it to be. I mean, yeah, it was a little too hot, and that turf pellets weren't necessarily helping with everything.
And I want to point out something to the podcast viewers. If you're watching the webcast, the highlights you're seeing today is every single offensive play ran by Sterling City. And yeah, I mean, they were all touchdowns. 6 total offensive plays, all touchdowns for the Eagles. Chance Ferguson had 2 kick return touchdowns, as you're seeing right here, a KLST Top 5 Play of the Week nominee, somehow getting that thing in the end zone.
And the kid did that twice, man.
And then Damian Calderon with a game-sealing pick 6. And I like the PA guy when he called that second Chance Ferguson kickoff return touchdown. He said it was 40-something yards, but he ran like
144 or something. Yeah, no, it was funny. Sterling City, man, they have been nothing but impressive this season. I think they've played one of the hardest schedules in the state of Texas in 6-man football. And just, you want to go back to a tier conversation, just beating Highland the way that they did today. And, I know they beat Westbrook by 10. It could have been 18. It could have been a little bit more. If they're playing like that on offense every single game, and I guess the reason I say that is because Highland is not just a terrible team. They're now eliminated from the playoffs, but they're not terrible. And that the fact that you touch the ball 6 times on offense, score on all of them, that's just shows efficiency right there. And then forcing turnovers on defense is huge in 6-man football, and that's 2 interceptions, pretty much back to back. One to close out the half, nearly scored to end the game, right like the 2-yard line. I mean, he was just right there from ending the game. And then you come out in first possession for Highland, get that pick 6, and finish it the right way.
I see you say ball don't lie.
Yeah, exactly. And so Sterling City, just going through it, I guess since I've got it up, they like you said, they clinched a share of the district title. Their outright chance with the win next week. They play Robert Lee, probably more than likely going to happen. But just have to clarify that it could not happen, which would mean Westbrook would be the co-champs if they win their football game and Sterling City loses. So, but regardless, they're both in the playoffs.
You're going to be pretty hard to beat if you play on offense like that.
And down the road, just looking really quick, since I've got the 6-man bracket and we're actually a little lighter on time than what I thought we would be, we've kind of zipped through this. Just, looking at Region 1 and Region 2 in front of me. When I say I've got the playoff bracket, it's more just based on things are right now. I think a lot of it's pretty set in stone. Some stuff could change. But Sterling City would get Hermleigh in the first round because Hermleigh lost to Ira last night. So they would get Hermleigh and then more than likely get Rankin. And then the potential of facing Westbrook again in the third round is there. And then for the state semifinal matchup, you would more than likely, because of just how Region 1 is, get Borden County. Now, there's the potential that you could say maybe O'Donnell comes out of it, but Borden smashed O'Donnell last night. Maybe Knox City is in there, White Deer. Happy is the one that I would say probably has the second best chance, but they're going to get Borden County in the third rounds, more than likely. So, yeah, I look, that second matchup for Sterling City against Rankin, that's going to be big.
Mark that on your calendar.
Yeah, that's a huge, I think the winner of that game could win the state championship this year.
It's going to be pretty hard to beat Sterling City when they are efficient as they are in pretty much all phases of the game. District 14 1A Division 1 Erie and County beat Very Best 57-8 on Thursday. Eden, they beat Paint Rock last night 59-14, which sets up pretty much a de facto final playoff spot game next Friday between Eden and Erie and County. Should be a pretty good one. That one out at Sanders Field in Eden.
Yeah, and that's the game we all thought was going to be the district title game entering the season. That last
for
week,
the final playoff
man, that's going to be so exciting. Erie and County and Eden for the district championship game, and then Water Valley says, as Coach Corso, not so fast, my friend. We're going to come in here and just fool everyone. And yeah, so Water Valley's in no matter what. They've locked it up. They're not outright yet, just because of, like I've said, you could have a deal where they lose somehow next week. I don't think that's going to happen again, but it could happen. And then the winner would be co-champs of Erie and County, and Eden would be co-champs with Water Valley. But that one's going to be really, really good still. I am leaning, if I really hate to give predictions this early, but just based on how teams have played, I still feel like Erie and County, I have a feeling Erie and County is going to beat Eden. And it also should be pointed out, while Erie and County has not played the hardest schedule out there, they still only have one loss, and it's just against Water Valley.
Yeah, Water Valley. You got to give credit where credit's due with Water Valley.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Busting into the top 10 this past week at number 10. They had an open week. People picked them as number 3 in this district. I mean, we even mentioned Eden, Erie, and County. Hey, you're the district championship game last week of the season. How fitting is that? That is the last week of the season. Yep, we were wrong.
Everyone was wrong, man. I don't know many people. Maybe the people in the folks in Water Valley that were actually right about that. And they'll get either Baird or Gorman in the first round. Baird's the team that beat Erie County last year in the independent state title game. So, hey, that should probably be a win for them. But then the big one, another huge game in the second. They'll have a week off, and then they'll play the second playoff game. It would be Water Valley against Lakey. So that's going to be a true test to see where Water Valley's at, because playing Westbrook, playing Borden County, they were just blowouts, and then that string of games where they got through Highland and they've just cruised through this district. It really might show you really where this district is compared to the rest of the state. And Lakey was right there with Rankin that one week. I think it was 98-97.
Insane. So, and
it ended on a fumble recovery. So yeah, no, but Water Valley, I mean, like you said, credit where credit's due. They're district champs, and no one had them.
Water Valley picked up 45 Paint Rock next week. They can be outright District 14 1A Division 1 champs with a win over Paint Rock, Eden, and Erie and County. They are playing for that final playoff spot. Definitely a game of the week for us here in the Concho Valley. And, hey, who knows? They can maybe clinch a share of the district title with a win, whoever wins that game, and with a Water Valley loss. Welcome back, Blackwell. I know we said welcome back, Wall, but actually welcome back, Blackwell.
First time in 3 weeks. Talking to Coach Lowry this week, he was chomping at the bits too. He wanted just to be back out there with the guys, and I mean, good for them. They got an easy win. It
was like the past 2 weeks. I know we've sat up here and we come to the District 6 1A Division 2 block on our work, and we're like, what is going on over there?
Yeah, I had to get it figured out.
There's a bunch of questions.
Oh, that's why. Yeah, it's that's what Lowry. I was like, what's going on this week with you guys? It's he didn't even necessarily know it to a T. He just knew that it was them and Lorraine that would be playing next week for the district championship, and that everyone else has had to forfeit because of either ineligible players or not having enough players or having a COVID outbreak in the case for Olfen. That district has been a mess, but the two teams that are the clear-cut 1 and 2 are going to at least get to play each other. Fingers crossed, because that district has been so crazy. Fingers crossed that they will get to play next week for the district championship, and then we'll see what happens in the postseason.
Blackwell beat Trent 62-12. Lehman Saunders, if you don't follow him on Twitter, he's pretty close to kind of the 6-man game here in Texas, at Lehman Saunders on Twitter. He reported that Trent actually forfeited the game, but both teams agreed to still play using ineligible players. And by that, I'm pretty sure he means like move-ins.
Yeah, just players
that's cool. That's cool for the teams, just to get back and play.
Well, let them just play. Yeah, and that's why I said, it's why I was a little confused when Lowry said, "Well, yeah, us and Lorraine are in the playoffs no matter what," and because I was like, "Well, don't you still have to play Trent?" I know that they've had some forfeits and they've had some issues, but basically saying they're just forfeiting, and so that makes sense now. But good for them for at least
finally getting back on the field. Blackwell will face Lorraine next week in the district championship game. The winner will be the 1 seed, obviously. The loser will be the 2 seed. We're kind of cutting it close here on time, so that's about everything on Locker Room Rewind. I guess we'll leave you guys with some final thoughts heading into this next week, the last week of the regular season. I know we mentioned Chris Stovall can claim their first kind of outright district title since coming back to 11-man. I know we touched on Eden, Erie, and County. The winner of that enters the playoffs. We also have Central, who's just been on a tear in District 2-6A, going for their 4th straight win. What are some of the things before we wrap up that you are kind of looking forward to here in this next week?
I guess it's just if the district, the teams that have already clinched that share of the district title, just win it outright. And I feel like all of them will. I think that Ballinger's going to win their game against Sonora. I think that Cristobal will beat Miles. I think that, Sterling City is going to beat Robert Lee. So it'd be good just to have that clear, concise, hey, we were the district champions. We ran the table in District 2, finished undefeated in District. So, that would be really, I guess, what I'm looking forward to. As far as a game that's not necessarily just a district championship related type game, because a lot of the playoff stuff is set. That's why I said it's moving week. I think that Ozona Johnson City game is somewhat interesting, but I feel like Ozona's probably going to win that one. And then El Dorado and Junction, you can argue, is a little interesting also, just because of what it could do with the whole 3-way tie for the 2nd seed in that district. But then again, I kind of feel like El Dorado is, the way that they beat Rock Springs and the way that Rock Springs beat Junction, it's kind of like, I feel like the gap is there.
Yeah, if you kind of connect the web.
Yeah.
I know we mentioned the web a lot on the show.
But, I feel like that's how it's going to go. That's my opinion, my gut telling me that. And, of course, Erie County Eden should be fun. That's the game of the week.
For sure. It sounds like you kind of need some closure And how fitting is it that it's the last week of the regular season?
Yeah, and I mean, look, with Wall, we're kind of just backtracking with all of it. It's like, we'll just hope that maybe they get a shot, but I think that next week's going to be more of a let's just get into the postseason healthy, because you're probably going to beat that team. And
Clyde needs to beat Jim Ned in order for that to happen. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Locker Room Rewind. Today, we will be back on Wednesday with our preview episode. If you want to hear us talk more about Eden versus Erie and County, or Central versus Midland High, Christoval versus Miles, make sure you subscribe to our CVHP Locker Room Rewind podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Just search CVHP Locker Room Rewind. Hit the subscribe button. You can get notifications for when new episodes go up. We post preview episodes Wednesday with recap episodes like this every Saturday. Normally they're a little longer, but we are short on time. Thank you, Highland and District 8-1A Division 1 for that.
For having football games on a Monday and on a Thursday, and just everywhere.
It's good to have football.
Of course.
Football
and
multiple days a week.
We can get more into the scenarios and stuff with a longer, more drawn out. As I do this all drawn out, I kind of did that on purpose.
Every end of an episode.
But we'll have more time to get into that stuff.
Go ahead and subscribe to that podcast feed, CVHP Locker Room Rewind. Also check out ConchoValleyHomepage.com for all your highlights and scores. That's it from us, from the Locker Room Rewind crew. Everyone have a safe Halloween weekend and a great Sunday. We'll be back on Wednesday.